Welcome. You're joining us for our broadcast. Actually, we've been a little bit off schedule for a little while. We're trying to get back from being at Ignite. And today we've got a really interesting topic. We are going to talk about adoption and some of the resources that are available. I'm joined today. My name's Sean Wilson. I am the product marketing manager around deployment and operations. And I'm joined here today by my colleague, Mike Hollinshead. Mike, welcome.
Thanks, Sean. I'm the program manager lead for the customer engagement and adoption team within Skype for Business. And we live and breathe adoption every day. So I'm excited to be here to talk about it with you today, Sean.
Yeah, it's really cool. You know, adoption's one of those things that we tend to think of as an afterthought sometimes. Right. And I don't know, for some of the people out there might know, but I actually ran Link internally for us. Before it was Skype for Business in MSIT. I had a lot of time around adoption and working on things like end user information and awareness. And so today we're going to kind of walk you through a little bit of the workflow around how to create a raving fan, right? And then we're going to give you some resources. So one of the things I think we should probably just start with, I'm going to move over to the slide because this one's an interesting one. Mike, tell me a little bit about what I'm looking at.
Yeah, so many times we're really focused on the technology that we might be rolling out to an organization. And we kind of lose track of who we're speaking to in the first place. Yeah. Like, why are we asking folks to make this change? And I've gotten caught up in this in my previous careers too as well, right? We think it's amazing and it's transformative, but we don't really think about how that's landing with the end user. So, our analogy here is, look at this guy's face, right?
Yeah, it's like, it's one of those ones, I don't know if you've ever been in those conversations where someone just talks at you.
Yes.
Right? Sometimes in IT, we have a tendency to think that because we understand the technology, that our end users should just grok it the same way we do, right? And so, making sure that your end users don't look like this guy right here is really important, right? And why is that? Like, why is that specific moment important?
Yeah, because you must make a good first impression with your users. It's so key. And the other piece of this too, Sean, is that we've looked at multiple studies and many change initiatives actually fail. Yeah, that's the crazy part, right? And so you really have to spend time focusing on that daily habitual deep utilization of a product, right?
So if you think of it, like I think of the things that I use every day without fail, that I rely on, and on my phone, the apps that I use, that I create, and the consumerization of a lot of these productivity apps and bringing things like Outlook to the phone or Skype for Business to the mobile device has created that almost leash for me to be able to be tied in. And so, but how is it that IT has challenges versus those types of things for natural adoption?
Yeah, again, I think a lot of times, if we don't focus on our end users, right? If we don't look at what solutions we are providing them to onboard, right? That's where you fall into this 70% change. 70% of change initiatives actually fail.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that, because 70%, that's a lot. Like, if I was a gambling person and I had a 30% chance that I was going to win, I'm probably not making the bet.
Yeah.
So what is it that we can do to really help our customers and our end users as IT be more successful?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're going to get into some resources in a couple minutes, and really what we're focused on is providing you all with a pre-baked set of packaged content that's ready to rock and roll, that's tailored for your end users, right? So that they can actually go and consume, they can look at it, they can, you don't have to go and create all of this on your own, Sean. And that's feedback that we've actually gotten, which is, hey, can you guys help us out here?
Yeah. I'll go back to the slide for just a minute. It talks about that 70% number, and I want to kind of talk to that, because one of the things that happens is the reason that change initiatives don't succeed, and you and I have talked about this a lot, and you did a session at Ignite about creating raving fans, is because you don't think about the users as not even as they become an afterthought, and adoption's not an afterthought. Actually, adoption should be like one of the very first things you talk and think about when you start to think about the personas of the users that you have, the usage profiles that align to those people, because otherwise your users are going to end up looking a lot like, oh, actually we have the graph.
Yeah,
I didn't even
right.
know. I was like, I forgot about the build here.
Yeah.
You know, the rollouts that are technology centric, you're going to miss out. But if you can really avoid some of those key pieces, right? You stop having your users being frustrated and look like this at the end of the day.
And that's really what we're trying to avoid, right? Is, you don't want your end users to be frustrated. You don't want them to actually feel dumb. We've gotten that feedback of, oh my gosh, because you've overlooked this, we actually disenfranchised our users, right?
Yeah.
Because they're busy, right?
Yeah.
They're coming to work. They're trying to get their jobs done every day. We're asking them to fundamentally change at times what they're doing, right?
Sure.
So we really are focused on making sure that you consider adoption and change management as a part of your technology rollout from the get-go.
Yeah.
Right?
Let me kind of throw not an analogy, but a scenario that it seems to land well when I talk to customers is, if you think of the fact that we've come from OCS, right, to Link, to now Skype for Business. We always have had technology at the center of trying to improve productivity. One of the fundamental changes we made, especially when we made the shift to Skype for Business, was to put the user at the center of it.
Right.
And really recognizing, 300 million users and 3 billion minutes of voice and video on the Skype network a day.
Right.
That gives you unparalleled insights into how people work and how they consume voice and video. And so for us to make that transition into Skype for Business was really about our saying, hey, it's important for us to recognize what's important to users rather than what's the feature functionality that's important to increase productivity or the business value. And because business value is a byproduct of successful rollout and use, right?
And it really is a magical product when you think about it. The emotional connection that you can create by unlocking some of the scenarios, to be able to have a better work-life balance, to spend time with your family, by being able to remotely connect into meetings, it's super powerful, and that's the power that we don't want to lose, right? And we don't want to look past that.
And we're becoming, and one of the things that we need to think about in the adoption space is that we came from a historical world where, people went to work from 8 to 5 or 9 to 6 or 8 to 6, and they sat at their desk. And they might have worked on their computer, but they had a desk phone, and when they had to leave to go do something, they left that whole world with them. Mm-hmm. This world of being always on and always connected really also means that you need to take into account how your people are going to work and some of the flexibilities. Gartner's even had studies that have said by 2020, 85% of the workforce in the U.S. will work remote at least one day a week. Well, 85%, that means you need to be able to enable those scenarios, but you need to be thinking about those scenarios up front. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And be efficient about it and arm your users on how to do it. So instead of having them be frustrated because they may be having issues trying to do so, and then just have that feeling of, I might as well just be in the office, right? That's what we're trying to avoid, right? Like to help them unlock some of this and so that they can use it to their advantage and feel better about it.
Totally.
So Sean, why don't we talk a little bit about Raving Fans? Because we mentioned that.
Yeah, we mentioned Raving Fans. Let's kind of take a look at this slide. What is a Raving Fan?
Yeah.
Like, think about it. Like, if you fundamentally think about what a Raving Fan is, it's actually based off the noun fanatic. Right. And I honestly, when Nick works with Mike, and they did this at Ignite, and when he pulled this slide up, it spoke true to me. Because if you think about your favorite sports team, right? The fact is that the majority of people that are out there right now that are a fan of something is probably 100%, right? But what is a fan?
I love these guys, right? You know, and I love the commentary here about the definition, the excessive and single-minded zeal, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, think like NFL is so popular now, right?
Yeah,
or football in general. I mean, it's on most nights, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Try to do your fantasy picks, and you're like, oops, I missed a day, and
Exactly,
you're done, right?
exactly. And so, like, look at these guys; they are so pumped, right, to go and watch their team, right? And so, the way that we think about it from a Skype for Business perspective is we really consider a raving fan to be somebody who's proud of using the product.
Yeah.
Like they want to talk about it with other people about, hey, I started using the Skype for Business product and look at how it's changed what I've done at work and unlocked these scenarios and made me so much more productive, right? You know, it's somebody who wants to champion it as well.
And we've kind of called them the ambassador, right? Like,
exactly.
If you think of an ambassador, their point is to be there to represent something, but in this case, it's basically to spread the good news, so to speak. And one of the things we'll talk a little bit about when we talk about the adoption or about some of the IT Pro resources for you, but one of the things that for me is one of my favorite things is when I'm walking down the hall or I'm at an event and I'm listening to other people talk about how they're using Skype for Business or even any other tool, because it makes me understand that when you put yourself in the end user mindset, people really take it much more personally than if they're just getting an email saying, hey, you got to go use this new tool.
Right. Yeah, don't just push me to go do something. And I think it speaks to those last couple points there, Sean, which is that people become, if we've done our job well, they become emotionally invested in this product.
Yeah.
It's something they can't live without, right? You know, it unlocks these scenarios of, hey, I've got a conflict, there's an important meeting that I got to attend, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, my kid might have a soccer game that I got to be at too. You know, and actually that happens for us with T-ball. My kids play T-ball, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, being able to be at their practice, to be active, to be participating with the kids, but at the same time, if I need to go take a call for a couple minutes on the sideline and weigh in on an important meeting or decision, I can do that.
And like full fidelity of voice, video, and content and all that. Now, one of the things that I want to make sure, because I forgot to plug it, and so I'm going to plug it because there's the Bing Pulse that we're getting. You've got questions there that we've done. Also, we have the Q&A manager, and we're going to share some links at the end of this, and we'll broadcast them through there. Okay.
Yep.
So, well, let's kind of keep it moving. I want to kind of tell a story of a really, it's a story that we love to share, because if we can share a scenario of how somebody natively adopted it and became that ambassador, it becomes even better. And it's really, this one's what's in it for me from the end user perspective. Mike told a little bit of the story of being able to join remotely for his conference calls, but this actually was a story about a nurse, and she was doing rounds, and part of her doing rounds was she had a lot of paperwork that she'd do, and she'd have questions from the patients, and she'd have to go back to specialists all the time or go and get information from different departments. And one of the things that she started to do is she started to use the mobile client to reach out to those specialists.
And she just found it on her own.
She found it on her own.
Yeah.
She wasn't like IT didn't really like go and push the mobile client. They'd had it there, didn't really know it. And she started to use this as a way to accelerate and improve the healthcare for her patients, which really is what her motivation is to simplify her job, make sure that her patients are taken care of the best.
Right.
And what was there was a byproduct to her doing this.
Yeah. This is such a neat story. You know, she actually developed this expertise, right? And she was sitting down, and we actually reached out to her. We heard these stories, which was pretty neat. And she was sitting down and talking to a coworker about how she's changing her job in effect, and she can reach the people that she needs to much more efficiently, and therefore do her job better. And then she started encouraging her coworkers to say, hey, you know, you can use the mobile product as well, right? Like, hey, this isn't just me, you know, like other people can start leveraging this too. So she became the de facto Skype for Business kind of expert on her team. And this is this concept of ambassadorship that we talk about, as well as kind of championing the product. And then folks started looking at her as a specialist.
Yeah.
Right. And so she got, we speak about these intrinsic and extrinsic motivations for end users and what's in it for them. But, frankly, this kind of built her up of like, hey, I'm an expert in an area.
Yeah, and when we talk about what's in it, that intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation, which we'll take a 2-second deep dive into. Right. So extrinsic is you want other people to give you the glory and the gleaning. That's where you gain your motivation from. But intrinsic are the internal ones, almost like introvert versus extrovert, right? And intrinsic motivators are things like you feel better about what you're doing, right? Like a great example is charity. People, motivators that people give because they feel it's not a public thing, it's a thing that they feel better doing. When people have intrinsic motivators, when they're bringing on technologies that are things like they help their team or they help others with getting to a resolution faster and sharing that's really the most powerful driver and motivators out there.
Secret sauce, and we aspire to replicate that behavior. Right. And so that's a big win that we've seen.
So we actually are about to transition so we can talk a little bit about IT pros.
Yes, let's do that.
But one of the things I want to talk about for you guys out there that are looking at this is where do you start? One of the things that we asked was, adoption method. And it is very heavily IT centric right now.
Right.
And so we're what are you looking at?
Yeah. So, it's a picture speaks 1,000 words, right? And so, I don't know about you all, but sometimes, you come out of a game or a mall and you're walking around and you're looking for your car and you're like, I just need to go home. Can I just please find my car? I can't remember if I'm on the 2nd floor or the 4th floor. Yeah. And then you pull out, your little alarm deal.
And you're like, trying to pop the trunk so you can see it go up. Yeah.
And where we're going with this is, a lot of times finding adoption-related materials can be like this.
Yeah.
You're on this journey in the internet, right? To say, oh my gosh, can you please just help me find the resources that I need to get my job done? And so that's where we started spending some time and some focus on packaging up those materials to make it a little bit easier for you all to get at that. Yeah. And so one of the investments that we've done here, which Sean is pulling up, is what we're calling our adoption content directory.
Yeah. And so as part of this content directory, you can see the link that's right here, aka.ms SfB Rollout Kit. But if you look in the top right corner of the broadcast window beside the Bing Pulse, or the Bing Pulse, you'll actually notice that right there is a thing that says the Adoption Rollout Kit, and you can click on it. It takes you directly into that link. So go download this. Now, let's talk a little bit about what's in it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's got a ton of resources, right?
It does.
So, we're not going to go through all the details of the resources, but we wanted to kind of talk because one of the questions we just asked was an internal training portal. And, one of the things that's really interesting is it's amazing how much we expect people just to self-learn.
Yeah, right.
And we, in IT, it becomes, if we don't think of how the users are using it, like we worked with Air Canada, right? And they spoke at Ignite, and one of the things that they told us is that they looked at the different personas between headquarters and flight attendants, right? And pilots, because they had very different needs of mobile versus that. One of the things that we've actually done in part of this rollout, one of the resources we're going to give you, is basically the template for you to go and have an internal training portal for SharePoint Online. Because if you're in Skype for Business Online, you've got SharePoint Online, and we give you the ability to roll that in. Let's talk. Why don't we tell them a little bit about what's in that, and we can talk a little bit about it, and we'll share some pictures in a bit.
Yeah, you bet. So, the idea is we kept getting requests back, right? It makes sense. Hey, can you point me to the latest and greatest resources, which is why we built the content directory in the first place. But then we were asking the questions, well, what's your intended use? Oh, well, I'm building our intranet site where you can go and you can learn about Skype for Business, and we're going to tell our collaboration stories, and I want to share links. So, we kind of stepped back and said, well, why don't we help everyone out? I'm like, let's build one for you, right? Let's help you out. And so within that, what you'll find is, the latest scenario-based training links that we have. our quick start guides around the various modalities for Skype for Business.
Everything from how to make a call to, sending an IM to scheduling a meeting.
There you go.
And they're great actually to have ready for an employee on their first day, printed out and sitting on their desk. It's also one of the things that is key within all of these resources is also we give them some other things that help IT with the rollout pieces, right? Like the announcement templates and email posters, things like that. Because let's be clear, IT is really good at deploying technology.
Yes.
And this whole softer side of IT, of the marketing campaigns. We've actually seen that there's a couple studies out there that internal marketing groups within IT, if they have the capability to do that, have a tendency to have better success with adoption rollout.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that we've done is we've built these resource kits for IT, but we actually, one of the other resources that we provide is Fast Track.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I kind of want to address, because we asked the question and very heavily in IT, and it's kind of nice to have somebody help you, guide you through it. Tell me a little bit about what you've done with Fast Track and what it is and what you've done to help our customers.
Yeah, so if folks haven't heard about Fast Track, please go out to fasttrack.microsoft.com and check it out. And the purpose of that really is to help provide you a guided service to onboard onto Office 365, right?
Yeah.
We recognize it's not an easy journey for you to figure out on your own, and we want to help and guide you along that way. And so what we've done is, when you have intent to deploy Skype for Business, we've made sure that the Fast Track managers and engineers that will work with you on doing this have prioritized adoption. Like adoption is a conversation right up front on technical onboarding. And then the resources that we're mentioning today that we packaged up are also made available to you in your relationship when you're talking with the Fast Track.
And those are also, so not only are they made available, but they also help guide you remotely on through that journey and what that looks like.
Yep.
Now, there's three real ways to deploy. There's self-deploy, where we gave you that resource kit, right? There's also Fast Track, which is an amazing resource that's available to customers. Even if they did their Fast Track with Exchange, they can come back, right?
Yeah, you bet.
And one of the things that's also in that's key is if you don't want to do the heavy lifting or the work with Fast Track Remote Guided, there's partners out there that do adoption as well that use that same framework that Fast Track's using.
Yep.
And that we're providing. And if you think of it as, hey, adoption is a priority, let's make sure that it's in our change management efforts up front. Let's make sure our personas are there.
Right.
So,
and then Sean, before we move off, I guess the one last thing, we talked earlier about first impressions. The portal is a great way to make sure that lands well, right? So you give me a quick start guide or something on my desk, but where do I go, right?
Yep.
And so making sure that there's that connection back to a place to go find resources to be able to continue my journey is kind of the other key piece with this, right?
Yeah, and what we'll do is for everybody that's on the call, we'll drop this deck into the community and flag it under the Skype for Business community. Yep. And we will actually drop this into with an adoption flag in there so people can get it after the fact too.
Yeah, last night I actually posted in the SfB community, if you're active there, link to the adoption portal and the content directory resources.
Oh,
so
awesome.
It's out there.
So it's there.
Yeah,
Great.
It's there.
One of the things I wanted to show people is a little bit about some of the stuff we've done. When they go to fasttrack.microsoft.com, one of the things we've done is, it's real easy to say, how do you send an IM? Mm-hmm. But somebody in HR might have a specific need, or somebody that's in legal or even in sales might have a specific need on how to make their teams more productive or how to recruit. And these scenario-based cards, so to speak, actually live in the Office 365 productivity library. So you can actually filter by Skype for Business and choose based on what you want to accomplish. Right. And it actually brings all of the different modalities of how Office 365 with Skype for Business can really help different organizations. Because part of the challenge in IT is that we've got tons of stakeholders. Right? And our stakeholders are not network. And they might be facilities, they might be HR, they might be sales, they might be finance. they all have different needs.
Mm-hmm.
And those productivity library really helps kind of paint some scenarios
Yep.
that you might want to be able to go and target that as an adoption scenario for those people, right?
Yeah, make it come to life, right? So for example, in the slide right now, the scenario there is around taking amazing meeting notes with OneNote integration with Skype for Business. I don't know about you all, but I'm probably in more meetings than I would like to be. And so, I actually get compliments at times of saying, hey, wow, you take really, really great notes, right? And you have the roster in there and you have content. Hey, guess what? I don't want to take credit for all that, but the product does that for me.
I click the button that says share notes and we're good.
Right.
But it really is. It's if we can take it away from the feature and functionality and make it more about how users want to use or be able to make it available. It was really interesting to talk to a couple of customers about how they use the mobile client for ground maintenance.
Right.
For their field, because their engineers are their service techs and they have engineers back at headquarters, and so they actually use the video and the ability to do content sharing to really do schematics and stuff. That was a scenario that I didn't think about when I was in IT, that hey, we've got engineers that are out working on, if it's not a Surface Hub or our PFEs are out. That's really important for them to be able to get back to us and be able to communicate.
Yeah.
So.
And so leverage this, that again, the idea here is that we don't want you all to have to make all of these scenarios up on your own. I'm sure you will have your own customizable scenarios, and we recommend that you make these your own, but at the same time, you have a place to start with.
Yeah.
So it's, you're not always just coming from ground zero.
Yeah, and right now I'm gonna share a slide, but Ben, who's running the production on the side, is going to drop these links actually into the Q&A manager. You should be able to pull them out of there as well. He's going to broadcast it out to you. And part of the reason for that is that you have access to these. This slide will be up on, well, you already said half of them are already up on the portal. We will drop this deck in there after this broadcast. But one of the things that we want to make sure that we land when we get there is that it's not an afterthought.
Yes.
Okay. And we understand that in IT, it's fast. Different priorities are always taking shape and they're shifting.
Mm-hmm.
We are doing two things. One, we are trying to help you by giving you access to these resources. So those ones that are deploying themselves in IT, you've got access to them. Yeah. But also, we're making the investment within Fast Track and also within our partner community to make sure that you've got resources, if you just don't have that bandwidth to do it, to make sure you're doing it right.
Yeah. Our ultimate message here is you're not alone out there. Yeah. What we're trying to do is we are continuing to invest in this space, and you can find it across the resources that Sean mentioned. The reason that we're putting so much effort behind this is because we've seen the successful outcomes behind it, and we want you all to be successful with your rollouts as well, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't include the slide. I should have, the one with where people actually do the launch event and get the email out.
Right.
With a huge spike in adoption, and really, it's about being mindful and planning from day one to be able to be successful.
Yeah.
As we're starting to kind of wrap up and close, any words of wisdom that we've learned in that we might want to share?
Yeah, I would say, one of the things that we're really keen on is that every organization's culture is different. And so while we provide a lot of what we believe is good foundational materials, spend the time to make them fit in your culture.
Yeah.
Because then that will just translate across. We don't want, some Microsoft Speak message always. Make it yours, right? Yeah. And the more that you can put your message, your vision on what collaboration looks like within your organization, front and center on your adoption portal, for example, we've seen greater success with that when folks truly take the time, make the materials their own, and then hone it into their end users. Because again, ultimately, that's what we're trying to get at, right?
And like you think about, you talk about, we don't want to be Microsoft Speak. You think of Microsoft, we're very type A.
Right.
We're very, if you throw gamification on it, we want to be number one. We'll figure out.
Leaderboards.
Yeah, leaderboards. We'll know how to get there. However, other companies might not have that approach. What they have is they have more of an encouragement model where they want to encourage the people that are up there, and really it becomes kudos and praise. And so that's just another example of how how your culture really will help dictate what you're doing. So hopefully with the materials that we've given, brief overview on this, hey, you can always reach out to us through the communities. Now, the quick shortcut to get there is aka.ms, so the usual one, /SfB community. And that'll drop you right in the Skype for Business community. Not only join, but also sign up. Because when you authenticate into there, you can actually participate and provide us some insights. And we really do. We take great heart into reading this. A couple people on Mike's team, a few people on ours that actually review it, plus engineering. So
absolutely. And as we update the content directory, that's going to be your location to go and listen on updates, right?
Yep.
So we're going to push, hey, we've just updated resource XYZ. We're going to want to push it through the community so folks find out about it. So please do come join us.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Sean.